Good evening, I'm Diane and you're watching ViuTV News. Coming up on tonight's show. Hong Kong's economy is looking up. We tell you what's driving growth in the city. LegCo's Finance Committee gives green light for $6 billion membership investment in the China-led Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank. New acting FBI chief refutes White House claims that the FBI lost faith in its fire director James Comey as U.S. Senate grills him in Russia influence probe. Good evening. GDP figures came out today in Hong Kong. The economy expanded by 3.4% in the January to March quarter from a year earlier. Now, that's a welcome improvement compared with 3.1% in the last quarter of 2016. The firm's start was helped by buoyant global trade and the wealth effects from the city's robust property market. But analysts are warning growth may not be as stellar in the coming quarters.
Monetary policy among the major central banks could, increase the volatility in the global financial market, and that could, pose a threat to the global economy. Brexit is still, evolving, and then there are several major elections to be held in some European countries like UK, France, and Germany later this year. And the outcome of these elections could affect the economic sentiment in Europe and hence the global economy. So we need to stay alert.
Chief Executive C.Y. Leung said Beijing's Belt and Road initiatives will become a new drive for local economy, helping the city's businesses grow outside Hong Kong. Speaking at a Law Society event, Leung said the city's one country, two systems principle has made Hong Kong an ideal partner for the mainland and the international market. Meantime, Justice Secretary Rim Ski-Yuen pointed out Hong Kong's legal sector is leading in Asia, and its services can safeguard cross-border trade, serving as a catalyst for economic development. And LegCo's Finance Committee tonight approved the government's $6 billion funding request to invest in the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, with 36 votes for and 10 against the proposal. Some lawmakers earlier questioned whether the investment would generate any return at all, but government officials present said no return should be expected, as the bank is aimed at helping developing countries. Now, expect to bid farewell soon to the Secretary of Commerce and Economic Development, Greg So, another official hinting he would not stay for another term. On a radio program earlier, he said he wants to take a long vacation after his current term ends in July. But he said his will to serve the public remains. Separately, the minister has ruled out the idea of designating certain phone numbers to telemarketers. This comes amid government efforts to curb the prevalent problem of unwanted telesales calls.
Telephone numbers Hong Kong are in limited supply, and we do not want to add one more digit to the telephone number. I don't think people would like to see that. And these people-to-people telecommunication, telemarketing call may not be able to fill up all these numbers under one, preceded one digit.
In other local news, disgraced former Chief Executive Donald Tsang is once again in court for a mention hearing, facing one count of accepting bribes as the city's leader. Accompanied by his wife and siblings, he showed up at the High Court this morning. He allegedly accepted free construction for a Shenzhen penthouse in return for granting a digital broadcast license to a company. Tsang is to return to court in September for the hearing, but he's currently on bail while he awaits appeal against another misconduct conviction. Turning overseas now, the White House has defended President Donald Trump in the latest fallout over ex-FBI Chief James Comey's firing. This after Trump told NBC that he'd asked Comey before his firing whether the president was under investigation in the Russia probe.
One of these conversations, the president said, happened at a dinner where the FBI director, according to the president, was asking to stay on as FBI director. Don't you see how that's a conflict of interest? The FBI director is saying he wants to keep his job, and the president is asking whether or not he is under investigation?
I don't see that as a conflict of interest, and neither do the many legal scholars and others that have been commenting on it for the last hour. So no, I don't see that as an issue.
Meantime, the acting FBI chief has refused to give details on whether he had heard Comey telling the president he was not the subject of investigation. This as a U.S. Senate Intelligence Committee, also looking into Russian influence in American politics, grilled Andrew McCabe with questions directed towards Trump's controversial firing of Comey. McCabe did, however, vow to inform the panel of any political pressure to stop his agency's probe. He also refuted Trump's claim that the FBI had lost faith in Comey.
I have the highest respect for his considerable abilities and his integrity, and it has been the greatest privilege and honor of my professional life to work with him. I can tell you also that Director Comey enjoyed broad support within the FBI and still does to this day.
Staying in the U.S., the Senate has also approved Trump's trade representative nominee, Robert Lighthizer. It's a critical position ahead of a major trade pact renegotiation with Canada and Mexico. The Senate voted on Thursday to confirm the veteran trade lawyer by a majority. The administration has had to wait for Lighthizer's confirmation before starting the renegotiations of the North American Free Trade Agreement. Trump has vowed to tear up the 23-year-old pact if he fails to get a better deal. Some Democrats, while critical of Trump's views on trade, said they were confident Lighthizer would help U.S. workers. And still more in the U.S., Donald Trump has signed an executive order aimed at strengthening the federal government's cybersecurity. It's Trump's first significant move to address what he's called a top priority of his administration. The White House said the order also aimed to boost protection of critical infrastructure, such as the energy grid and financial sector. The directive, which largely drew positive reviews from cyber experts and industry groups, lays out goals to develop a more robust cyber deterrence strategy, in part by forging strong cooperation with U.S. allies in cyberspace. And U.S. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson hosted foreign ministers from Arctic nations at a summit in Alaska, where President Donald Trump's reluctance to fight climate change cast a shadow over the talks. Lisa Bernard reports.
The United States has been privileged to lead the Arctic Council.
U.S. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson hosting foreign ministers from Arctic nations at a summit in Alaska Thursday, targeting a range of problems in the region, which is warming at a faster pace than any other part of the world. Clouding the talks, the U.S. president's stance on climate change.
The global warming and that, a lot of it's a hoax. It's a hoax.
President Trump's reluctance to fight global warming putting Tillerson in a tough spot. Arctic Council members from Canada, Norway, and other nations no doubt putting pressure on the Secretary of State to keep the U.S. in the 2015 Paris Agreement, from which Trump has threatened to pull out. Adding further pressure on Trump, scientists from the U.S. and other Arctic nations issued a report ahead of the meeting warning the impact of climate change left unchecked could lead to trillions of dollars worth of damage to infrastructure. The White House was expected to decide on whether the U.S. will leave the Paris deal by the end of the month, but now says that Trump needs more time.
The European Union's chief Brexit negotiator, Michael Barnier, sought to reassure Ireland on Thursday that their interests are shared in divorce talks with Britain. Barnier addressed lawmakers inside the Irish Parliament, telling them that a united EU will be here for you. He said he'll work with Dublin to avoid a hard border returning to the island. With close trading links to Britain and the only land border with the UK, Ireland is widely considered as the EU member who would lose the most when its bigger neighbour quits the bloc. And coming up next, the latest from the world of business. Well, Hong Kong markets ended the week at 2.8% up, though it was a pretty slow trading day today. Let's take a look at the charts now. The benchmark Hang Seng rose 0.1% to end at 25,156 points. The tech sector is still leading the charge in gains. Internet giant Tencent was up about 1.4%, while China Unicom Hong Kong traded about 1.1% higher. Wells Fargo doubled its cost-cutting target as it's still trying to recover from a sales scandal. The third largest U.S. bank plans to chop another $2 billion off its costs. That's on top of the same amount it pledged to slash earlier. The major cost cuts come from closing 450 branches this year and next. The major U.S. lender is still recovering from a sales scandal that involved bank employees opening as many as 2 million unauthorized accounts. South Korea ordered Hyundai Motor and Kia Motors to recall 240,000 vehicles after a report by a whistleblower. This is the first time the South Korean Transport Ministry ordered a compulsory recall of the two automakers after they'd rejected an earlier order for a voluntary recall. The ministry also urged investigation over whether the automakers covered up 5 safety defects. Uber is facing the biggest challenge yet to its European rollout. That's after the EU's top court was advised to rule the ride-hailing firm as a transportation company rather than an app. This could impact Uber's operations in other countries in the region. Europe has proved to be one of Uber's toughest markets, where it already faces restrictions. Some regions have forced the company to withdraw or curtail services with non-licensed taxi drivers. Boeing's partner supplying 737 MAX jet engines aims to fix a mechanical glitch within weeks. But as Fred Karayama reports, this comes just days before Boeing was to deliver its new planes.
Boeing's grounding of test flights for its new 737 MAX planes could be a short one. One partner of the joint venture that supplies its engines, Safran, said Thursday it'll take just a few weeks to fix the engine glitch that suspended the flights. The news comes just days before Boeing was to deliver its first 737 MAX to Malaysian carrier Malindo Air. The company said it still plans to start deliveries this month. Boeing can't afford a huge delay because experts say that'll cause its inventory to build up. It had been on course to achieve a rarity among plane makers, delivering a jet on time. The plane lists for $110 million, but analysts say discounts could bring that down to around $50 million. Teal Group aviation analyst Richard Abulafia explains just how crucial the 737 MAX is for Boeing's bottom line.
Extremely important for a number of reasons. One is it's easily their best-selling aircraft. Second of all, it's one of their biggest sources of profit, the entire corporation. And then on top of that, you've got production going from the NG model to the MAX at a point where they're at a record level of output.
The MAX is a fourth generation of a jetliner that debuted 50 years ago. Boeing needs to get its MAXes off the ground and into the air fast because rival Airbus has had a one-year head start with its competing A320neo jet.
And stay with us, there's plenty more to come on the show, including a Shanghai tattoo artist offering free tats for mums who want to hide their C-section scars, helping them to regain confidence. Stay with us.
It's the road that leads to fantasy. Do you dare to walk down? Take a deep breath. Think out of the box. Go to heaven or fall into hell. Be an angel or be a Satan. Or just live as an ordinary being.